Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param Param Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyamagda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satguru Pranatosh Maham Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. Welcome everyone. As we can see, we got Dave back visiting us today. He's a little bit tired. He may go out at any moment if he gets too tamasic. I am myself a little bit tamasic today, so I may go as well if I get too tamasic. Okay, so the signal here. Let me change the provider here. We begin from the verse 42. As the pith, how you say that, pith or pith? As the nectar, let's say, as the nectar of the munja grass. Yes, Mark. As the nectar.
I was going to say pith. It's pronounced pith.
Pith. Okay.
And it's not the nectar as such. It's the very center of the plant.
Yeah, well, it is the center of the grass, where some juice can be extracted, some sweetness. So as the pith of the munja grass can be drawn out from its gross covering, the self can be distinguished through reasoning from the three bodies or from the three or the five sheaths. Once it is distinguished, it can be recognized as limitless, unchanging, unconditioned awareness. Okay. So this munja grass is an analogy, a classic analogy, Vedantic analogy. I haven't seen and I haven't tried to peel it. I haven't tried to uncover it to extract the juice. But the scriptures describe it. Some saying not easy to be done because it is hard, it is sharp, it has a lot of horns. Not horns, I'll say. So we have to be very, very careful to remove the leaves, the hard leaves with a lot of sharp edge, and you can easily get your hand, your fingers all cut. But in India, people are poor, and then they know that this grass has something, if you really manage to get through the covering. So the key word here is covering. There is a covering, and then there is a nectar, there is a sweetness, there is a center that is most valuable in the whole plant. So now how to get to that? So we need to remove all this covering, and the removal of this covering is not easily done. So one can get hurt, one can, get cut and so on. So this is an analogy to say that likewise, consciousness is apparently covered by the five koshas, by the three bodies, by the three mental states, by all superimpositions of name, colors, and forms. It's covered by all human experience. It's covered by the sense of I am a person. So all these objects that we experience, they are superimposition on consciousness, and then it appears to the Jiva Atma as if the self is covered as the piece of the munja grass, and it requires a lot of attention, a lot of focus, a lot of determination, and careful, careful removal, rejection, removal of these coverings, of these apparent coverings of consciousness. And as we know, it is a path that very few individuals take, to uncover the self, understanding that the self is never really covered, but due to avidya, ignorance, we feel as if it's covered. So it's not really covered, it's not hidden, it's out there shining as the light of the illuminator, as I often like to say, and at the same time it is hidden from the sense organs, and it's hidden from the mind, but yet there is a possibility to know it, and to realize that it was never really covered, such as the munja grass, but it was all the time fully exposed, but not as an object, as we know. So this is a very nice analogy. And munja grass is a grass that has a soft core that exudes a sweet liquid that is encased by layers of leaves. In order to get to the core, one has to skillfully remove the leaves. It is a delicate task that needs patience and full attention. So why it's so delicate and why it requires so much attention? Because we can make a mistake at any time, and then we get hurt, we get caught, we get bound, So the same way, when we do this inquiry into the nature of the self, so we have to do it with a lot of determination, with full attention. We need to be patient. We need to have certain mental and intellectual qualifications developed, and we have to do it skillfully, so that we keep removing. We're removing the misidentification with phenomenal objects, as if the self was reduced to those objects. So we see the self as the body, and then we need to remove the body intellectually, cognitively. We just remove the body is not the self. Why? Because the body appears to me. And what is this me remains the $1 million question. No, the body is perceived by me. And then again and again, we need to look for this me, to this I, to the self. And we need to keep rejecting everything, discriminating, and just with a lot of attention, we keep separating this me, the perceiver, the knower, from whatsoever it comes within its awareness. So there is awareness, there is anything that's happening there, and this as very, very subtle, purified, refined intellect is, of course, required for this uncovering of that which was never covered. It was covered by avidya, ignorance, because it's shining all the time. How does it shine? It shines in the human intellect and makes the human intellect to become the knower. And it is this intellect that has to find out its true nature, and it has to discriminate everything, including itself. Vijnana Maya Kosha has to be excluded as the not self as well. And then it's not that the intellect is going to say, okay, the self that I am is not this intellect, this very center of my subtle body that is doing this discrimination. If I reject it And then I don't have the means to carry on my investigation because I have rejected my own intellect. No, the intellect remains there, but the intellect got rid of a major misunderstanding or misidentification, because the intellect before was appearing as the self. Now the intellect is there as the reflected self and inquiring to the nature of the original self. So we don't lose the intellect when we reject the intellect. We just understand that the intellect is yet not the original consciousness, but the reflected one. So the intellect has to be very subtle, and without the intellect, this discrimination, this uncovering of the self is not possible. As we know. Oh, but intellectual knowledge. So intellectual knowledge is just more philosophy, more academic knowledge. It's more theory. So I want the real thing. So no, consciousness is the nature of the intellect, and the intellect is the only instrument by which this knowledge can be gained. It is an intellectual knowledge, but it's not an intellectual knowledge in relation to any object, but in relation to the true subject, which is original consciousness. So this intellect is required, and self-knowledge takes place in this subtle intellect. Okay. So the verse 43. In this way, the identity of awareness and Jiva is demonstrated through reasoning. So as some of you have noticed, I like to use the word consciousness, okay? And here it appears as awareness. As we know, James likes to use this word awareness. So I like to use consciousness to show, to demonstrate, or to indicate that reflect consciousness is original consciousness. So we don't need to be misled to believe that human mind or human consciousness is original consciousness, but we also have the possibility to understand that there are no two consciousness. There is only consciousness appearing, reflect as a human consciousness, the knower, the experiencer, okay? So I like to use consciousness so that we understand that it is very, very simple, because, it is the same consciousness we experienced shining in our intellects. So in this way, the identity of consciousness, limitless, pure consciousness, and Jiva, the Jiva Atma and Paramatma, the identity of both is demonstrated through reasoning. This identity is taught in the sacred text in sentences such as "you are that," Tatvamasi. The method of self-realization is through the elimination of variable attributes. Okay, so this is a very simple definition of what Vedanta really is. It's nothing but a process of discrimination or rejection or elimination of everything that is changing, which is an attribute. So what is an attribute? An attribute is a property of something. It's a quality of something. So everything that exists in the world, in this universe, it has certain characteristics, certain properties. It serves certain purpose. It has certain constitution. As we know, it all comes from the three energies and the five elements, and then the other elements develop and so on. So everything is defined by its characteristics, its attributes. Yeah? So the variable attributes is everything that defines objects. Every object is defined by attributes, and these attributes, they change all the time. Every object has a different composition of attributes or qualities. And these qualities, they change. They are not all the time present. Certain qualities, certain attributes will appear on certain objects here, and then not on other objects over there. These are just variable attributes, okay? Not all the time present. No? And how are we going to get this juice of the munja grass? We need to remove everything that is a variable attribute. Anything that changes, anything that appears in the surface, okay, as reality is just a play of Maya, is just a play of the gunas, okay? It's just configurations made by Maya Ishwara. So the method of self-realization is through the elimination of variable attributes. So it comes to my mind that famous joke about the lady that was very beautiful, but there was something strange about the lady. And then the Swami goes and says, I'm going to take a good look at this lady. I'm kind of falling in love with her. I'm going to sleep off her window to get to know her better, more intimately. I'm not going to jump on her bed, but I'm going to watch her from a close distance. I want to see her going to bed and coming out. He went there and she was already in bed. She went early to bed. And then he says, you know what? I'm going to sleep here and see if she comes. When she comes out of the bed, there will be light in the room. And then I'm going to see this woman that somehow got my attention. Eh? So he was there. And then when he sees the woman, she sees the woman, it was a totally different woman. It was the same woman or a totally different woman. It was the same woman, but the variable attributes were not present. So she came out, she did not have her tooth, and she did not have any hair. The hair and the tooth, they were fake. They were accessories. Okay, the accessories, they appear, as accessories, as attributes. So he got to see the woman. It is the same woman, but because he was an inquirer, he was a Swami, he said, I want to find out this woman without the variable attributes. And then I know her in her core. And then I can see the reality of this person, that I fell in love with. So elimination of the variable attributes is what we do all the time in Vedanta by discriminating that which is always present, never change to any contact with object. From what? From all objects, okay, which come and go in a constant flux of change. So all these objects, all this experience that occurs in consciousness, they are variable attributes. So my feelings, my thoughts, my emotions, okay, my notions, my ideas, they change. They are not constant, okay? They appear and disappear, okay? They are attributes. They are just colors, it's Maya coloring the self by superimpose all these phenomena that appears to the Jiva as the self. I, my emotions, my energy level, my thoughts, my intellectual assertions, and so on. This identity, the identity of consciousness and the Jiva, is demonstrated through reasoning. So what is this identity is properly indicated or stated by those Mahavakyas. They are declarations, the final declarations of the Upanishads. They are declarations of identity, okay? The most famous are, you are that, Tatvamasi, and Aham Brahmasmi, I am that Brahman that I'm seeking and searching for, okay? So those are Mahavakyas, those are declarations. These declarations are taught in the final of the 4 Vedas, and they are called the Mahavakyas of Vedanta. And you are that consciousness that you are looking for. You are that Brahman. And the method, as we know, is through the discrimination between the seer and everything that is colored by the attributes of Maya. Another way to put it, Maya, how Maya creates names, forms, and colors by adding attributes, getting the 3 energies, developing the 5 subtle elements, and then grossifying these elements, splitting them in many other elements, and then he start doing what? Creating objects with certain attributes to it. So we need to simply negate reality to all these attributes imposed by Maya and understand that the only reality is consciousness on which those attributes are superimposed, or in which those attributes which are revealed, illumined and revealed by consciousness, okay? Another way to say it. So the elimination, that means that limitless, the method is through the elimination of variable attributes. You are that. So you, of course, means what? You say, you are that. Huh? It is a very funny statement because it does not make anything. Because something, this cannot be that. When we say you say, this body mind is that. Okay? So we need to understand the implied meaning of you and that. And you, in this case, is the Jiva Atma. The Jiva Atma is seeking and searching for the self, for Atma. And he's searching for the self. And then in the end of the Vedas, after he has done everything to find the self, and then the guru comes and then presents these final statements and says, you, Jiva Atma, is that Paramatma. There is only one Atma, okay? So these final Mahavakyas, they need to be understood by understanding the implied meanings of you and that. Otherwise, it is absolutely contradictory. Okay, so you means the Jiva, and that means limitless consciousness. So the Jiva that appears to be limited by what? By its variable attributes, by its variable qualities, properties, right? Everybody is a configuration, and every configuration is limited, okay? So the attributes that I experience in my life is different from the attributes of Mark and so on, okay? And every object, a sentient object or inert object, it is limited by its very attributes. Have you ever thought about that? Because if Mark is a man, he is limited not by not being a woman, you understand? So if somebody is an engineer, it's limited by not being a medical doctor. Oh, if you are both, and then you are still limited by not being a scientist, you understand? So everything and anything that is the attributes that define an object, it's limiting the object because the object now is colored by certain attributes. Therefore, it can be seen as this object. Now, it is very limiting. So consciousness is free of any variable attributes, limiting attributes. So that means limitless consciousness. So to the degree that we eliminate the 5 sheaths, we will be left with only consciousness. So we have consciousness. Consciousness appears as Jiva Atma. The Jiva Atma experiences the world, experiences Jagat. He is in the world. He experienced Jagata, and he's looking for Ishvara. He's looking for Brahman. And in his search or her search, he experienced the world and Brahman and Ishvara through the 5 sheets. 5 sheets are different way of looking into the 3 bodies, dividing the body in 3 parts. So we experience the world through these 5 levels by which we can experience Jagat. We experience it physically, energetically, emotionally, intellectually, and we experience it as bliss. You understand? So all these 5 levels of human experience, they are all referred to as I, me, 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 me. It's the same me experience the world on 5 different levels. You understand? And this consciousness, it's mixed up, it's confused with one's very experience. It's confused by one's very attributes, okay? And then we need to do what? Discriminate, discern, separate the self the same way we separate the juice within the the munja grass from the plant. And this is a process that requires a lot of attention, a lot of discrimination, a lot of determination, and so on. The cheats, which make it seem as if awareness is limited, are non-essential attributes, and therefore they can be negated as the not self. Why we are going to negate the 5 sheets? Have you ever seen anybody fully satisfied with any one of those 5 levels of human experience? No, we are never really satisfied. Even when those experiences, they are favorable to one's conditioning or vasanas. So even when it is, we are never satisfied. We don't trust it because we know it changes. We know that it starts changing the intensity, and then we see it turns, and then the sweet becomes bitter. You understand? So these 5 levels of attributes, okay, needs to be negate, reject, but for that we need to have a certain degree of maturity, because people, they like to reject the downside of life, you know. Oh no, I want to reject all the unfavorable experience I get through the 5 sheets, but I want to retain the upside, you know, the favorable, the punya experience that I gain through the 5 sheets. Now, the individual, when it's mature, it understands the limitation of punya as well, you know, because punya is quickly exhausted. You know, there is no stable punya. You understand? I mean, I lived some time in USA, and in my years there, I met a lot of people, and I got into this American dream of becoming a millionaire. I started working. I want to be a millionaire, you know. And then I met a guy he's still nowadays is my friend. He's a Canadian who lives there in Washington State, and he told me, oh man, I mean, it's not difficult to be a millionaire. A lot of people making millions. The most difficult is to stay up there, to keep your millions, you know. And he told me that, and he told firsthand experience. Why? Because he was a multi-millionaire, but he ended up poor again. Okay, so even punya, you know that you cannot rely on punya because it's now with you, but tomorrow you never know. Anything can exhaust that kind of punya. So for that reason, excuse me. For that reason, a mature individual wants to negate reality through any and all experience, even the very favorable ones. Knowing, understand the limitation and defects of all experience, we eliminate negate reality to the 5 sheets. Okay, we are no longer interested in experiencing through these 5 layers, but we are interested in what? In understanding the true nature of Jivatma as the only source of true satisfaction and security and joy and stability and so on. So we want to negate all which is known essential, knowing that they are attributes superimposed by Maya, knowing that they change, okay? They are not reliable. Therefore, I have no problem to negate even my great punya karma, my favorable conditions or life situations. We say, no, this as well is not going to fulfill me. We remember the story of Buddha. Buddha walked away from his palace, and he just discriminated somehow. And he said, no, it's not going to do it. I'm going to leave my wife, my child, and I'm going to escape the palace. His father was trying to prevent him from escape because his father was invested in him. He wanted him to be his successor, a great king, and so on. So, but no, he was a man of discrimination, and he just escaped in the middle of the night, and he negated all the luxury he had in the palace as the not self, as something that would never really liberate him from other births, And then it ends here, this passage saying that identification with the sheaths is bondage. So the moment that we identify with our experience and we say, okay, no, I'm not that experienced, but I'm this experience, because this experience it says a lot about how great I am and how happy I am and so on. But when I'm upset, when I'm depressed, when I'm irritable, when I'm, and then I know that has to be rejected. I don't accept those aspects of my experience. Okay, so now any identification with any experience through any of the 5 sheaths is bondage. Bondage is something that attaches you to that which limits you, which makes you feel like changing and going in losing your existence, because everything that is colored by the attributes of Maya, they are bound by time. There is no configuration of Maya which does not end with time. Time consumes everything, including the universe as a whole. Scientists by now know the universe one day is going to just disappear. It's going to die the same way the stars are born and they die. So bondage is to be attached to something that is bound to disappear, and it's in a constant flux of change, so that you cannot really rely or have a sense of stability. Oh, who are you? Oh, I'm this happy person that and then you meet the person next day, she's totally angry or depressed, and you say, but who are you? Are you the happy girl, the happy boy, or the depressed, angry girl or boy? So this is the attachment to what changed. That is bondage, okay? If you define yourself by your attributes, they change, they are variable, and they are not going to provide you with a sense of stability, security, and peace. So feel free to say anything if you have any contribution or if you have any questions.
Well, you can count on me. So, and when you say, like you said, the last word was like, you feel like a sense of peace. Well, that implies then that we've got the senses are still active. Yes.
Yes.
And so even as we discriminate, discern, and negate the sheaths and negate everything, ultimately it's like, if we negate everything, then what's left is the self, and yet the body still exists, but it doesn't exist. So it seems it's very difficult to negate ourselves. It's to negate the body which we're so attached to. So that's what strikes me in this journey, of negation, you come down almost to the very end, and then something stops you.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
you're
I got
just
your
about there, and then you just get.
Yeah, I got your point. You began point to something very nice. You recall me saying that then you can find peace. So we need to understand the self is not an object of experience. It's not experienceable, and it's not an experiencing entity. The self is not an experience entity. Okay, and it's not experienceable. It's not an object that you can experience. It goes to the extent that it's not an object of knowledge either, because it can be known but not as an object. Okay, so but once the Jiva understands that Tattvamasi, that the Jiva you Jiva is that Paramatma, once it understands that, so the Jiva in its body-mind construction or configuration is still there, transacting in media through the 5 sheaths, through the sense, and so on. And this Jiva now, because he understood his true nature is Paramatma, is limitless consciousness, that which does not change. This same Jiva, understanding its fundamental attributeless nature that never changes and it's never affected to experience by experience, this same Jiva is still living in a body, walking through the 5 senses, through the 5 koshas and so on. It's going to experience peace and satisfaction. And this peace and satisfaction, it's not dependable on the parabhada karma or the experience, the favorable experience. This peace and satisfaction and stability, it's coming from a different address. It does not come from the world of object, but it comes from the jnana, from the knowledge in regards to one's true limitless nature. You understand? So the Jiva Atma is the one who is going to have the experience of peace, because the self is not an experiencing entity. You understand, Dave? So that was a good point. Is that all right? I know it's tough to get that one. I mean, I want to know the self. I want to be the self, but up front, the scriptures tells us that the self is limitless existence and consciousness, but it's not an experiencing entity, because we are so used to be an experiencing knowing entity that we want to transfer our sense of identity to Brahman and imagine that then I'm going to be a super experienced knowing entity, able to know everything and experience this transcendental bliss, ananta. No, consciousness, Brahman is not an experiencing entity. So we need to understand that and be at peace with it, and knowing that, the Jiva Atma, the Jivan Mukta, in this sense, the Jnani, is the one who is going to experience a certain degree of ananda, living from that platform of self-knowledge. Okay? In this way, the verse 43, in this way, the identity of awareness and the identity of Jiva is demonstrated through reasoning. This identity is taught in the sacred text. We have seen this one. The following verse 44, the self-consciousness becomes the material and efficient cause of the world when it is associated with those aspects of Maya in which there is a predominance of Tamas and Sattva, respectively. Okay, we heard many times in our text, when we say that Ishvara, Ishvara is the efficient, intelligent cause of the universe. So we know that Ishvara is a manifestation that comes from consciousness reflecting in Maya, in the fundamental Prakriti. And then we have Ishvara, and Ishvara is is the reflection of consciousness in the aspect of Maya, which is predominantly sattvic. It's sattva, pradhana, prakriti, okay? Is a certain reflection in this macrocosmic reflecting medium called Maya. So we have that analogy that Ishvara is the intelligent cause, the efficient cause of the creation. And then we know that Tamas is going to be responsible for the material aspect of creation. We're going to have the material universe coming out of Tamas. And we know that the Jivas, they come out of consciousness reflecting in the Rajasic aspect of Maya. So these to understand a subtle distinction here, because in this verse, Vidyaranya says that consciousness, the self, is the material and the efficient cause of the world. So sometimes the scriptures are going to say that consciousness is the cause of the world, it's the cause of the universe, it's the cause of creation, okay? Most of the time it says that Maya is the cause of the universe. Maya projects the universe on consciousness. But as we know, Maya itself resolves itself in consciousness, because Maya and everything that comes out of Maya, okay, exists within consciousness and not apart from consciousness. Ultimately, consciousness is the cause of the universe, but it does not do anything to cause it. Maya comes, and then Maya produces Ishvara, Ishvara being pure sattva, pure intelligent knowledge, and then it plays with the three gunas, which are the very fabric of Maya, play with the three gunas, with the other two gunas, and it creates Jagata, the material world, and Jivas, the agent, the experienced agent. But here again, it says that consciousness, which is the self, is said to be the material and the efficient cause of the world. When the self is associated with Maya, and when it shines in the in the sattvic aspect of Maya, it becomes the efficient cause of the world. When it shines in the sattva aspect of the universe, the tamas aspect of the universe, it becomes the physical, material universe. Okay, I don't know if I made it more clear or more confusing. I'm trying to make a subtle distinction between consciousness, which is the causeless cause of the universe. Okay, it causes, and it is the only thing that is without any cause. Everything stops in consciousness. And then comes Maya, and then we begin with this order of reality in which causality, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. The effect becomes a cause, and then it produces another effect, which becomes again a cause to something else, because everything is impacting everything else in meeting, as we know. Okay, so consciousness is without any cause, and without doing anything. Who does? Maya. Okay, but Maya cannot do it without consciousness. It requires conscious existence to create what? Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat, okay, and the world, okay? So therefore here it says that consciousness, the self, it becomes the material and the efficient cause of the world. It becomes the material cause of the world when it's associated with those aspects of Maya which are predominantly tamasic. So when it is shining on tamas, this aspect of Maya, it produces the material universe. When it shines on sattva, it produces Ishvara, okay? So this is the self. The efficient, intelligent cause of the universe, whenever it shines in the sattva aspect of Maya, okay? Tamas is the material for the creation. Yeah, the raw material for creation is tamas. As we know, we cannot create anything if we don't have the raw material. No, we know that. So we can have great, wonderful projects and ideas, but ultimately we need to have rajas, and we need to have the material tamas, so that we can bring anything into manifestation. Okay, so tamas is the raw material for the creation, and consciousness as sattva, nice distinction. Consciousness as what? As Ishvara. Consciousness as Ishvara is the intelligent cause. Okay, because consciousness does not really cause, although there is no cause or effect which is not within consciousness itself, within the scope of consciousness, okay? And the existence of any cause, the existence of any effect depends on the existence of consciousness, Satchitananda, existence consciousness, within its limitless nature. Okay, tamas is the material for the creation, and consciousness as sattva is the intelligent cause, in that it provides the design of the creation. So the intelligent, pure sattva provides the knowledge and the design for the creation. How it does that? With the macrocosm body of vasanas. It shapes the universe again and again because it is laboring jivas producing vasanas and sending it into the macrocosmic level so that Ishvara can reshape this world for the sake of the jivas processing their karmas, their vasanas. The creation is awareness in the form of knowledge. Yes, at the macrocosmic level, so the universe exists as pure knowledge. I mean, there are some other religious, spiritual scriptures that says that. In the beginning, there was only the verb, the word, the knowledge. And then that seed of knowledge, out of that seed of knowledge, that potential for creation, the creation manifests. So this creation appears as pure sattva, which is pure knowledge in a seed potential formation. We know this because when we reduce any object into its constituents, all objects resolve in their cause, consciousness. So we know that everything resolves into space, and the space resolves into consciousness, okay? But we also know that this universe, this creation, is made of pure knowledge, because if we really begin to investigate all phenomenal objects in the creation, we see that it's intelligently designed. You see, the beauty of Ishvara is mostly, it's unbelievable. I mean, we can associate Ishvara to knowledge, compassion, and so on, but the most clear and visible aspect of Ishvara is its knowledge, it's intelligent, it's perfect. Just imagine being able to project a universe and to hold it into place by a set of infinite numbers of laws, and then at the same time managing it to the extent that every jiva gets what it deserves, and all for the sake of not punishing the jivas, but to allow them the possibility to grow and to realize, the true nature of this apparent reality. So it is pure knowledge. It is the fabric of Ishvara. I like to put it, Ishvara's body it's the very fabric of Ishwara's body is knowledge. Isn't it a nice way to put it? Oh, how can you see Ishwara? Oh, I see Ishwara by the eyes of wisdom. About which eyes are that? Oh, the Vedantic eyes of wisdom. Okay, and when you see Ishwara, what do you see? Pure knowledge. Okay, so that's the body of Ishwara. Okay, pure knowledge, beautiful, perfection. Huh? Reality is consciousness. It is flat. There is nothing out there. That objects appear to be away from you is due to Maya. Okay, this is a concept from James. It says that reality is non-dual. Therefore, it is almost as if it is a flat ocean of consciousness in which there are no objects really. All these objects are just like mirage. They do not really exist, you know. So that's what it says. It's flat. There is nothing out there. Those objects, all objects appear to be there away from you is due to Maya, the power, yeah, to bring about all these configurations of the three fundamental energies, you know, coloring consciousness just with all these infinite numbers of names and forms. Maya, and it's beautiful, and it's intelligent, and it is deceiving. Ignorance there goes to deceiving. Deceiving, why? Because it projects plurality, project names and forms, projects phenomena in the screen of conscious existence, which is non-dual, which is absolutely attributeless, okay, unmoving, full, whole, complete, without anything but itself. But Maya, it projects names, colors, and forms into consciousness, and then it's said to be an act of extreme intelligence, and it projects it in such a beautiful, fascinating way, and then it creates these beautiful human jivas, you know, and most of them are moved by dense ignorance to the extent that they become destructive and self-destructive. But here and there, some of its jivas, of Maya's jivas, you know, they develop certain sattva, you know, certain intelligence to recognize the presence of the creator, the intelligence of the creator, you know, and then gradually it removes one's ignorance. Okay, so it's Maya is the greatest illusionist or magician or trickist. Okay, deceiver. It deceives all beings, and in the passage in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, using the power of my Maya, I'm going to deceive all beings. Okay. So why it does that, nobody knows, and no intellect, human intellect will know that. But it appears that it does so because in order to develop this human intelligence, so this subtle body needs a certain degree of rajas and tamas. And as we know, tamas, you know, conceals knowledge, conceals reality, and rajas is going to present an alternative answer and is going to project something over reality, and it's going to miss out invariably because we don't see consciousness as the reality, we see the names and forms as the reality. Such is the deceiving power of Maya. Okay, this Maya, this beautiful, intelligent, deceiving ignorance. And this word ignorance, it applies, it is relevant from the standpoint of the Jiva Atma. Okay, because it is beautiful, it is intelligently designed, no? And but then it brings about certain objects which are living creatures, and these living creatures, they don't have the knowledge of Ishvara, and they don't even have enough knowledge to understand the true nature of this apparent projection. Okay, they can't see the screen of consciousness in the background. They only see the words in the paper. They don't see the paper. They only see the images on the screen. They don't see the screen. They are extroverted. So this ignorance refers to the ignorance of the Jiva Atma, which seems to be the very purpose of creation, to bring these objects into manifestation, superimpose them on consciousness, and among them we have these living creatures with a subtle body that shines with consciousness, and then but it's held together by a subtle body, a reflecting medium which is heavily influenced or constituted by rajas and tamas. It seems that the purpose here is to grow, purify, refine this subtle body, to develop the intellect with enough sattva, so that we come to a point to qualify to the Vedas and to the Upanishads. And then once we are qualified, and then Ishvara comes, okay, you guys, you have qualified now. Come here, I'm going to present you my revelations, okay? So follow the logic, and you're going to be free from this sense of limitation and insufficiency and inadequacy and all the complexity involved in the human experience. Maya, okay, which calls awareness to identify with the body, with the I am the body, therefore creating and the appearance of dimensionality. Okay. So let's see what comes next here. You are that, Tattvamasi, is Jiva Ishvara, Jiva Brahman identity. This teaching negates the idea that an individual can contact consciousness through some action-induced experience. So what is the title then? The title is You Are What You Are Seeking. You are that Brahman, okay? So when the Upanishad comes to us and says that, so we know already that you refers to the Jiva and that to Brahman. When the Upanishad comes and say you are that Brahman you seek, okay? It's making a statement of identity, okay? So this statement of identity, it comes only in the very end of the Vedas, because unless the individual is bred, mature, qualified enough, it's not going to do any good to the individual. Then what? I am Brahman, I am Ishvara. No, Ishvara is all-knowing. I am such an ignorant person. What are you talking about? Brahman, who is this Mr. Brahman? I never heard about Brahman. I know the Lord, but I don't know Brahman. So in the beginning, you cannot present these final statements like people in the direct path Neo-Advaita movement does, because people are going to be either deluded or they are going to just miss out completely on the meaning of the statement. Okay? So this statement being presented by a mature individual, it's the final, the final blow on the idea that the individual can become consciousness or contact consciousness, or Brahman, okay? That the individual can do anything to transcend to Brahman, to merge into Brahman, okay? So all those dualistic ideas involving actions and movement and transcendence and, becoming and improvement All these notions, they come to an end when we reach the Mahavakyas of the Upanishads. So you are that Brahman. It puts an end on any and all ideas that the Jiva can do anything physically, mentally, verbally, even intellectually. Oh, but Yana Yoga, yes, Yana Yoga is also ignorance. Okay, it is just a device. It's just a play, an instrument, a tool that remains a bondage, I'm Brahman, I am Brahman for this reason, for that, yes, but I'm not fully convinced, and so on. So it's still upasana, it's still a practice, it is still a sadhana. So the moment that the individual sees, I am that Brahman, and then and only then, there is no question of any sadhana or upasana, and it did not become Brahman. It simply recognized that he was all through that Brahman, that conscious existence, not the intellect, not the subtle intellect. So therefore, the idea that the Jiva seeking Brahman can contact Brahman through some action-induced effort to produce a good result is never going to produce the result. It's going to produce an experience of Brahman. And since Brahman is not an object of experience, someone is going to have just experience of phenomena or symbols of Brahman or states, mental states, states of reflect consciousness that one may say, this may be Brahman. But how can we know? How we know for sure that's now Brahman? Because any and all states, howsoever beautiful and sublime or celestial it may be, it's bound by time. And it varies, it changes, and it goes, it comes and goes. So, and then no, that's not Brahman. That's another variable, very subtle attributes of Jiva, a mental state that produces certain experience. So this you or that removes identification with the three bodies, with the 5 sheaths, with the gunas, with the mental states, with the 3 states of experience of the Jiva. All this is destroyed, it's removed, it's liquidated once we understand this mantra, Tattvamasi, I am that Brahman. You understand? The whole process of becoming comes to an end, because Vedanta is not about improving the Jiva, but it's about falsifying the Jiva as an Atma and revealing the Jiva to be Atma, the true nature, essential fundamental nature of the Jiva Atma being the Atma of Paramatma, in other words. Are you okay, Karen? It is an analysis of the Upanishadic statement, Tattvamasi, which means you are that, in which the word you refers to the Jiva, and the word that refers to Shwara or Brahman, in other better word. The word Asi means you are. It indicates an identity by 2 apparent different things or principles, let's say, original consciousness and reflected consciousness, okay? So it indicates the identity, of these 2 principles, Jiva and consciousness, reflect consciousness and original consciousness. To reveal the identity, Vedanta used a particular type of reasoning called Bhaga Tyaga Lakshana, a discrimination between the ostensible primary meaning of a word and the implied secondary meaning of the word. The implied meaning is called Lakshana. So I said a little bit about that, the implied meaning of you and that. So next week, we're going to look into this reasoning, this logic presented by Vedanta, which is discriminate between the primary meaning, the literal meaning, and the implied meaning. There is a lot of the times that we say things and we know already that we do not mean the literal meaning of those words. The most common example is when we go to a place and then there is a lot of people in a hall and then Karen says, "Oh my God, this hall is very noisy." Okay, the hall is noisy. Okay, so nobody will take it literally that the room or the hall is making noise. Everybody is going to eliminate the the literal ostensible meaning of that statement and take the implied meaning of the statement. So what is the implied meaning? The real meaning of that is that the people in that hall are very noisy today. Okay. To reveal the identity, Vedanta use a particular type, and this we're going to look into next week. And I guess we can stop here. And I'm open and available. I began a class today feeling very tamasic. Now I picked up a little bit of sattva, and I'm up to have some Vedantic good conversation if you're interested. Claudio, you are our second best questioner. You don't have any question to entertain us here for 5-10 minutes?
Maybe I have some question, but for Thursday.
Okay.
About Bhakti. I had some question about Bhakti this week.
Okay. So, but you are not thinking about your question all through our class today, huh?
No. It was behind.
Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my good friends. I thank you all for your presence. I thank you all for your donations. Your donations are so nice and helpful. Okay, I really appreciate them. So I forgot to, I keep forgetting to thank you guys, but now there is almost, who is still there? No, there are only the 6 of us. But anyhow, I will remember to thank the other guys as well. Okay, we meet again soon, Ishwara willing. So, arrivederci. See you next time.
Thanks so much, Arlinda. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Bye-bye.